Good morning. I want to begin this morning with a poem by John Updike because I think it captures the ways in which Easter is unique for us this year and gives us a different perspective on how to observe and celebrate the resurrection. His poem is entitled 7 Stanzas at Easter. Make no mistake, if he rose at all, it was in his body. If the cell's dissolution did not reverse, the molecules reknit, the amino acids rekindle, the church will fall. It was not as the flowers each soft spring recurrent. It was not as his spirit in the mouths and fuddled eyes of the 11 apostles. It was as his flesh, ours. The same hinged thumbs and toes, the same valved heart that pierced, died, withered, paused, and then regathered out of enduring might new strength to enclose. Let us not mock God with metaphor, analogy, sidestepping, transcendence, making of the event a parable, a sign painted in the faded credulity of earlier ages. Let us walk through the door. The stone is rolled back, not papier-mâché, not a stone in a story, but the vast rock materiality that in the slow grinding of time will eclipse for each of us the wide light of day. And if we will have an angel at the tomb, make it a real angel, weighty with Max Planck's quanta, vivid with hair, opaque in the dawnlight, robed in real linen, spun on a definite loom. Let us not seek to make it less monstrous for our own convenience, our own sense of beauty, lest, awakened in one unthinkable hour, we are embarrassed by the miracle and crushed by remonstrance. This poem urges us not to try to explain the resurrection by saying that it is like something, because nothing like it ever happened before or since. This poem urges us not to try to rely on reason, and it teaches us that wonder leads us to a truth as real as fact. We cannot know what happened that morning. The facts do not speak for themselves. We can only wonder, and wonder will lead us to truth. But most importantly, it will lead us to proclaim with Mary a God who is beyond our understanding. It will keep us from continuing to create God in our own image with our own words. For we proclaim a God who is beyond understanding, who will act how and when we do not know. According to the Gospel of John, the resurrection story is a love story. It's a story about God's love for us, a love that calls us and sends us away, a love that challenges us and comforts us, a love that compassionately smooths the rough edges of our own impatience, our own overactive intellects, our own willfulness, our own insistence that we are self-sufficient and that we must provide answers to the world. It is a story about Mary Magdalene's love for Jesus, a love that took her to that early dawn at risk of her own life. And it was a love that allowed her to turn, to listen to him, and then to let go of him. And it's about the love of Jesus for Mary Magdalene. And I really just thought about this more this year, that he waited for her. You know, he could have gone any time, but he waited for her outside that tomb. And he waited for her while she wept. He waited for her while she went and got John and Peter. He waited for her until she figured out who he was. He loved her with a trust and a compassion that is the dream of human love. When we are like her, and we have been commissioned to proclaim the existence of a God we cannot understand, the existence and presence, ongoing presence of a God we did not create, a God we cannot predict when the God we proclaim will act or how he will act. But we have been commissioned with Mary Magdalene to learn how to live in front of an empty tomb. The resurrection story teaches us, as no other story teaches us, how to stand and live a life with the stone rolled away. There are lots of self-help stories about how to roll away the stone. There are lots of self-help stories and inspiring stories about people who have overcome their limitations or learned to live with the stone in place, or who have understand that they can't move the stone, or we learn to live with our limitations or blame them on somebody else. But it is only the story of the resurrection that teaches us to live facing an open tomb, facing a future that we cannot imagine, that we have never imagined, that is beyond explanation, that lies outside our scientific and experiential paradigms. Let us not mock God with analogy. We just get John Hancock's words right. Let us proclaim a God who is beyond our understanding. And if we can do that, if we can let go of our own words, our own images, our own insistence upon answers, then, only then, will God continue to create in and through us. So in the words of John Updike, let us not mock God with metaphor, analogy, sidestepping, transcendence, making of the event a parable, a sign painted in the faded credulity of earlier ages. Let us walk through the door. If we face an empty tomb, what more is there to be afraid of? Amen.